Congress is back in session, and the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files continues to be a problem for Republicans. Although I do think we now at least see what they are going to try to do strategically. So on Tuesday night, they released 33,000 pages of documents through the House Oversight Committee run by James Comer. It appears that that's the first of several releases, although we don't know totally for sure. But here's what I would say. 33,000 pages looks like transparency. It's like, hey, we're releasing all this stuff. But here's the thing. The Democrats who went through this, the House Oversight Democrats, said that of the 33,000 files that were released, only 3% of those documents contained actual new details, that most of this stuff had already been released publicly. So this, if you take Democrats' word for it, which, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt, but I don't see why they would lie. Maybe it's 90% of the information had been released publicly before rather than 97, but the point still holds. What's happening here is what Republicans want to do is they want to have the look of transparency, the idea of transparency. Oh yeah, we released that stuff. Yeah, 33,000 documents worth, but not actual transparency, right? Because it seems clear, and you'll remember that Republicans left Washington last month, sort of running out of town because they didn't have a plan on how to deal with the Epstein files. They were dealing with a revolt within their own ranks. Republicans who wanted all of the files released, the Trump White House seemingly not interested in doing that, the leadership taking their cues from the Trump White House. So they left town 6 weeks ago, or a month ago about, with no plan. They've come back with a plan, which is that the way that they're going to counter this revolt within the Republican ranks and calls from Democrats is they are going to release stuff and just overwhelm people with it. Well, it's 33,000 documents. 33,000 documents, sure, but if most of it's already been released, I'm not really sure that shines much of a light on anything. They are doing this because the discharge petition, basically the end run around Republican leadership to try to get the Epstein files voted on, to basically have a vote on the House floor on whether or not they should be released, continues to move. So Tom Massey, the Republican from Kentucky, Ro Khanna, the Democrat from California, continue to push to get 218 signatures to force this vote. Now, if the vote happens, it is going to be approved, right? There's going to be, the House will formally have said, yes, we think you should release all of these documents. So Republican leadership is desperately trying to put down this rebellion, and this document release of 33,000 documents is their biggest attempt to do it. Now, I don't think it's going to work, candidly, and I'll tell you why. Because today, 10 victims of Epstein are going to speak at a press conference on Capitol Hill. It's one of the first times we've actually heard from the victims in any public forum during this whole debate. They met with a bunch of members of Congress yesterday to tell their stories. They're going to tell those stories publicly today. I think that will wind up being the big story of the day, because these stories are going to be horrifying. What Jeffrey Epstein did to very young women, and in some cases girls, trafficking them, sexually exploiting them is awful, period. And so I think that is going to wind up overwhelming this Republican strategy to try to put out a bunch of documents and just say, oh, it's transparency, everything's done. I would guess that will push the testimony, the public speaking out of these 10 victims may well push another Republican or two in the House to vote for this discharge petition. And they only need 6, and they have 3 right now. So that, I think, will overwhelm the story. Now, maybe the House Oversight Committee releases a bunch more documents, including unreleased stuff. I'm not ruling that out. I think that's a possibility, but don't be fooled. It appears as though most of what they've released is stuff that's already been in the public domain. This is more an attempt, I think, to kill momentum for the discharge petition vote than it is an act of actual transparency. And so I think this is the Republican strategy. I don't think, at least right now, that it'll work. All right, everyone, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button. You get content free every single day, and I continue to build my career as an independent news creator. Thanks, everyone.